Hey, what's up guys? It's GranularSumo here. So I didn't have enough time to record an episode of Studio Time for today, so I just threw a quick bass tutorial together in place of it, because I probably won't have time this week to release one, but it should be back to normal next Monday. So don't worry about it and shit. So I just threw this together quickly. It's not basically it's just something that I've been doing more recently, since for the last week or so or whatever. It's not the best example of it. I actually started doing these kind of sounds more recently because someone that I've been giving lessons to asked me what I do to make all kinds of weird bass fills and stuff, and this is the kind of process that I've been doing more recently. Like I said, it's not the best example of it, but you can take all the stuff that I show you in this video and make all kinds of crazy sounds. It's like this really twisted, weird Reese sound. I'll just play it for you quickly. It sounds like this. Yeah, so it's a pretty interesting sound. Just a Reese that goes all over the place and just I don't know, sounds kind of nice. I've resampled it a few times, but the last couple of times is just I just did it to add the reverse reverb and stuff without affecting the main bulk of the sound and stuff. But yeah, so we'll just go through it quickly. Starts off with a really simple patch. It's really similar to the one of the patches in the last bass tutorial that I did. So what I have is a triangle. So I have a triangle wave being modulated by another triangle wave, and I've set the coarse to 2 and I've set the fine to 15. Then that's being modulated by another triangle wave, apparently. I thought I'd turn that to a square 3, but apparently I decided to go with a triangle wave. This is a very triangle-oriented bass, apparently. So I turned the level up to -18 dB, and the coarse is set to 2. Then that's being modulated by a sine wave with the coarse set to 4, and the levels are -26 dB. I haven't changed any of the envelopes for any of these, I don't think. No, by the looks of it, I haven't. And I haven't turned the pitch envelope or anything on, so that seems to be it for the bass patch. So that sounded like this. Sounds really boring there. But then I have this EQ and the saturator. I turn the saturator on first, so I'll show you what it sounds like with just the saturator. The drive's turned way up. It's turned up to 23.4 dB, so that sounded like this. Really exaggerates that movement. And then I adjusted this EQ a little bit to bring out the parts that I liked in the sound. Like in the last video, I cut out some of the second harmonic and boosted the third, and then I just boosted the highs a bit. sounds a bit better like that. So then I just rendered it out to audio, didn't do anything else with it there, and I threw it straight into a sampler. Okay, and now comes the interesting part. So to begin with, this is kind of similar to what I did in the Foley pads tutorial that I did the other day as well. It's like the same basic idea behind it. So I started off with just this first sampler, and I looped this section that I thought sounded nice. So what I'll do is I'll turn all this stuff off. Okay, so I turned the filter off, and then I turned the pitch envelope on. I set the amount to plus 22 semitones, and the decays are it's just a little bit higher than the default value. The default value is 600 milliseconds, but I set it to 687, so it lasted a little bit longer. And then I turned the glide mode on and set the time to 120 milliseconds. So it's on the second sustain mode, and I've just looped this first little part like in between, like in between this like the first sort of like phasing part, if that makes sense. Like where the movement in I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, just this part sounded nice. And then I turned the crossfade up. So that sounded like this. There's a few pitch bends going on, bear in mind. Oh, need to arm it. So I've done a combination of just using the glide on the notes and doing some pitch bends as well to make it sort of move around a bit more. Okay, and yeah, I haven't done anything else in this sampler. So then I duplicated it twice, and I did the same thing that I did in the Foley pads tutorial. I basically just detuned this one by -4 cents, and I panned it. It's panned to the left slightly, and this one is panned to the right slightly, and it's detuned by +1 cent. And then I just have this EQ on both of them that's cutting out the lows, so all the lows are staying in the middle, basically. And then I've just boosted the highs a little bit on both these ones here. So that sounded like this. Compared to this. Sounds nice and wide now. Well, wider than it was anyway. You could make it even more wide and like turn the spread up on these panned ones. Sometimes that sounds really good. Sometimes it doesn't quite work. We'll just see quickly. Yeah, that's interesting as well. I just thought I'd let you know. So then it's going into this amp, and I just set the output to dual, so it doesn't make it mono, and it's on the blue setting, and I turn the dry wet to 17.5%. Just a little bit of distortion, basically. Then I have this EQ where I've boosted the lows a little bit, and I've cut some of around where the second harmonic was again. It's about 176 hertz. And I've just boosted here a bit, around 400 hertz. So then it's going into a saturator. I turn the drive up by 5.14 dB, and I turn soft clipping on. Again, I would have thrown the saturator on there first and then done the EQ afterwards. Interesting. So then here I have, apparently I just have a notch and a dry chain. Don't know why I did that, but it ended up sounding cool anyway, so that's that's what it is. And then I've just automated this notch a little bit. And then I have a reverb. So I turned the dry wet right down. It's only at 18%, and I turned the decay time down to 743 milliseconds. And the size is set to 1.09, and I turn the quality onto high. This is just to sort of make it feel a bit more present. Well, like it's in a room. I always say that, but that's the only way that I can describe it. Just sounds a bit better in my opinion. But just, you only want like a little bit, because otherwise it gets really muddy and stuff. A lot of the time I'll put this in like a dry wet chain and side chain it to itself or something to like make sure that it's not affecting the main part of the sound or whatever. But I didn't in this one. So then it's just going through a compressor, turn the makeup all the way up and the threshold all the way down, and soft clipping's turned on. Nothing special. So then I rendered it out and I reversed it and threw a reverb on there with quite a long decay time. Basically just so I would get reverb on these parts just before the start of the notes. And then what I did was, because like basically, if I just play you what that sounds like by itself, like it ends up making all this part sound really weird because it kind of like clashes with itself, if that makes sense. Wait, it sounds like this. Which sounds kind of weird. So what I did was I rendered it out and just chopped out the reverse reverb tails that would happen after, like before the start of the notes, and then just took the original sample and like faded them together to like blend it into like one sample basically. So that would have sounded like this. I need to arm it. And then last thing that I did was I just threw a camel fat on there, and I cleared the preset and just turned on the distortion unit, turned the tube distortion up to about 3 and the mech only a little bit, because if like with the patch that I made, like if I turned it up too much, it just got way too full on. And then I turned up the exciter to about the 4th dot, because it kind of brought out the highs a bit more and it sounded a bit like sharper sounding. And that's how I ended up with this sample. But another thing to note is I was messing around with the bandpass filter here for a little bit as well, and I was noticing you can get some pretty interesting sounds if you mess with the the low band on the bandpass filter. I'll just play with it a little bit. That was a really bad example. Okay, well, I don't know. I must have changed something from when I was doing it earlier, because it sounded a lot more interesting earlier. But yeah, just like another thing to note is you can get some pretty interesting sounds with that bandpass filter sometimes. Doesn't really work on this sound, but just have a go messing around with it and see what you come up with, I guess. But yeah, so that's how I made the sound. That's how I've been doing bass fills and things recently. Just thought I'd show you, but as soon as I've messed up my schedule and stuff. But yeah, I hope you found it helpful, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and whatever. Be sure to like and comment and subscribe and all that shit, and I'll catch you next time.